Happy Monday, you guys.
Happy Monday. Happy Sunday morning post Austria.
Post Austria, post crazy race.
It was a wacky one, for sure. It was not what we were all expecting. It was...
But I'm happy. I'm very happy with the result.
I'm
It was kind of
the resort. Fourth constructor to win this year, which
was
is
kind of a bore fest the entire time until the end.
Yeah, I would say the same.
But that's not what we're going to start with. We'll finish off with that today.
Absolutely. Today, we're going to be starting with Moto and Rally, which for Moto, that's happening like as we are speaking. So we will be maybe even doing that after F1 just so we can make sure we get
racing
everything.
in the Netherlands this week.
Yes. But for Poland, Rally Car Poland, that was this week, started Thursday. Apparently, Oliver, I didn't know this, but they do circle, like they do head-to-head lap races for the first, like 2 stages, I think it was. And then
really?
They did on the last day as well. They did the reverse circles, but they're driving head-to-head against each other, but then all the times end up compared against each other for the stage.
I see what you're saying.
So that was very interesting. After the first day, after Thursday, Tanek was in first, Neuville in second, Evans in third, and Katsuta in fourth. Friday, we had the first ever non-hybrid assisted car compete and completed a run with the debut of Ford's Puma Rally 1 for the WRC Latvia, who killed it through the first 4 stages on Friday, driven by the Latvian Martin Sesk. S-E-S-K-S.
Gotta be Sex.
No, it's Sesk.
Oh, Sesk. Sorry.
With Tanek being the first one on the track, he was also the first one stopped on day 2 after hitting a deer on the track. Imagine winning the first stages and then immediately hitting your deer. Weekend's done.
See, for those that don't watch Rally, that seems crazy, but for those that do partake in watching it, that is like right on course with what you're expecting with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. But it was just interesting to see it actually happen.
Yeah.
Rovanperä overtakes Sesk in SS5 in Super Stage 5 after Andreas Mikkelsen for Hyundai takes the rest of the day. Only 8 seconds separated the top 5 after Friday. It was Toyotathon on Saturday for the first 4 stages, with Stage 12 having both Toyota drivers, Rovanperä and Evans, over 2 seconds ahead of the next closest driver, Mikkelsen. Evans dropped 9 seconds after a puncture at the end of Stage 13. At the end of Saturday, Sesk beat Neuville by 1/10 of a second, stealing 2 points from the championship leader. Rovanperä in first, Mikkelsen second, Evans in third, and Formaw in fourth. For the final day today, Sunday, standings changed a little bit for P3 downward, but Rovanperä takes the win after substituting for his teammate with little to prep for these stages. Evans takes second, 28.3 seconds behind the Finn. Formal takes third, Neuville fourth, and the hybridless Rally 1 driven by Sesk takes fifth. Sami Pajari takes first in WRC 2 for the second time in a row, with Oliver Serberg taking second. Championship standings for Rally, still Neuville in first, Tanek second, Evans in third, Ogier and Formour, the Frenchman, in fourth and fifth respectively, Katsuta in sixth, and Rovanperä in seventh. Oh boy!
Look at that.
It was a fun rally week, but that was
especially with a non-hybrid assisted rally car. That's actually kind of crazy.
That was a huge surprise for it, and I loved every second of it. We want to go straight to F1?
Yeah, we can go straight back to our F1 news.
Back to F1, we start off with Lance Stroll not reporting to fan engagement last week, so he had to report to the stewards, which... Look, I understand that sometimes these guys aren't in the mood to talk to media, but these are fans. This is a completely different kind of feel to it. You're also... These are the people that are coming to see you race 24 weekends out of the year. The least you can do is go and talk to them and just hang out with them for a little bit. It's an hour. It's an hour and a half. You know, maybe you just didn't do great in practice. I don't care. Like, you still have to do it.
You can hate the media all you want. I hate the media.
Everyone hates the media.
But, yeah, I feel like the fans are different. They're paying to be there. a lot of money to be there. And it's not like you're jumping into the crowd and like high-fiving everybody. Like you're probably sitting up at a podium and talking for a little bit.
Talking for like 20 minutes and then maybe doing a meet and greet after, something like that.
Yeah, it's nothing that crazy. So, but I saw that you had sent me that, and I saw the whole like, cause it's laid out on one of those sheets where, you know, they originally like list your penalties in the race and that kind of thing. So I thought like Lance Stroll had like a post-race penalty from last week or something, and no, it's just for not engaging with the fans.
Mm-hmm. It's really lame, man.
It's just funny that that's something you can get called to the stewards for, you know?
Yeah, it's very strange. But continuing on to the next one, we have the race dropping their driver rankings. And oh boy, are some of them out there. The highlighted ones that we decided to talk about are Pierre Gasly is rated 2nd, George is in 7th, and Danny Rick in 12th.
So Pierre Gasly, in the eyes of the race, is better than one of Max Verstappen or Lando Norris this season.
It's so crazy, dude.
Like I think Pierre Gasly, in my personal opinion, is probably in the top 6 or 7.
Yeah, I was going to say top 8 for sure.
But say he's the second best driver on the grid right now.
It's just crazy because it's like, obviously we all know Max is 1, but then
I think you'd comfortably say Lando is number 2.
Lando 2, then you can make an argument for Carlos.
I wouldn't even say Carlos. I'd say
Lewis.
like Lewis maybe, or Charles.
I would say Lewis, Charles, or Carlos. You can argue for any of those next 3.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you got Piastri, who's been doing really, really just consistent throughout the years. So
he's like, I mean, he's far off Lando, but he's still so young in his career. I mean, he's in the best car now.
Yeah.
So he should be expected to be a bit further up there. But yeah. And then George in 7th. I that's close to where I'd put George, but I would drop him down a little bit more. I just think George is very inconsistent and mistake prone way too often. Obviously that wasn't true this week. But you know, over a long period of time, I don't think he's a super consistent driver. I also like very much worry for when a new teammate comes into that Mercedes next year, if he's really going to assume that team leader role. Like with Hamilton out of the team, he very much needs to put his foot down and say, you know, I am the leader of this team. Everything goes through me, kind of thing. And I don't know if he has the mental strength to do that yet. We've already seen how it's been with Lewis. All he cares about is beating Lewis. And sometimes that hurts the team.
Yeah. And I mean, Danny Rick in 12th is kind of out there just because A, he's being talked about being replaced.
I think it's too high.
Yeah, I think it's too high. Like,
didn't mean to interrupt your B, but
no, like B, I was just gonna say I think there's 5 other drivers that could be above him.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, Lance Stroll has, as much as we hate on Lance Stroll overall and how much I don't think he should be in the sport,
I think he's been better than Daniel Ricciardo.
He's been more consistent, and even today, dude, he had some good overtakes.
Yeah,
like
I thought Lance was actually really decent today.
Yeah, I was really surprised by it. So, really happy about that. I mean, Danny Rick, 12th, wild.
They probably have Logan Sargent at 5th. I'm just kidding.
Out-qualified his teammate this week. So
in sprint qualifying, of course. But yeah.
All right. Going on to the next point, we have Fernando Alonso. We talked about the last time he won a while ago.
Our GOAT.
But it has now been, as of June 30th, today of when we're recording, 4,067 days since Alonso's last win at 2013 Spanish Grand Prix. Man,
it's been nearly 12 seasons since Alonso's won a race.
That's crazy to think about.
Well, also just, it tells you how long he's been in the sport for as well. Like, this guy's career is probably going to end at somewhere over 25 years in the sport.
Yeah. In just racing in general.
Yeah, of course. Actually, I could see him racing post. Maybe go back to IndyCar for one more spell to try and win the Indy 500, something like that.
So he can get the Triple Crown.
So he can get his Triple Crown.
Yeah, I would respect that.
Yeah.
The FIA has changed the rules officially, and as of June 11th, it states that The driver must be at least 18 years old at the start of the event of his first F1 competition. At the sole discretion of the FIA, a driver judged to have recently and consistently demonstrated outstanding ability and maturity in single-seater Formula car competition may be granted a super license at the age of 17.
I was going to say, we hinted at it last week, didn't talk about it a lot, but we're definitely there now.
This is kind of setting it up almost.
This is the Kimi Antonelli rule.
This is just so Kimi can get into the sport. And with the actual rules changing, it leans more and more that he is going to be driving either for Williams or for Mercedes in the next year.
And you know what? I have my bones to pick with Kimi Antonelli after this weekend too, man. I'm off the Kimi Antonelli hype train. That's all I'm going to say.
Wow. Do you want to elaborate or
No,
want to
I'll
save
wait.
it later?
I'll wait. They're just small little
You
things.
take the next one.
Could almost say I'm almost off the Oliver Behrman hype train as well. Okay,
Crazy
maybe
takes.
that's a little too far.
Crazy takes.
But Aston Martin has reportedly signed Ferrari technical director Enrico Cardile, with Loic Serra being suspected to be the most likely candidate of replacing Enrico for the Italian team. So Aston Martin, obviously for the longest time, has been slowly recruiting a lot of team members from like Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull. So just that's another one to just check off the list. But it's crazy with all these people they're signing, all these factories they're building, they're still falling down the standings. I really don't know what's happening there.
Yeah, the team just seems to be struggling, and everyone's was praising Alonso for getting out of Alpine, and we poked fun of that, and it was like, oh, he made the right decision. He made the best decision he could have done for his career, and now we are all looking back at that like, was this the best situation?
I mean, yes, I think at the time it was. We had no idea it could unfold the way that it is, and maybe that's fate. Hating Fernando and just saying, we'll give you that little taste and then just screw you for the rest of your career.
It's wild, dude. Going on to the next point, as many viewers might know, Austria rolled out some temporary gravel traps as well as painted a blue strip on the edge of turns 9 and 10, I believe.
They actually did it on a lot more than turn 9 and 10.
Oh, I just saw it highlighted on 9 and 10, but I do think it was on like the major ones that a lot of people would get track limits on.
I was going to say it was on 1, 3, 4. Pretty sure it was on 6 and 7 too. It was almost everywhere.
Yeah, and those were just there to help the AI systems detect track limits, and
which I like a lot. Austria is like most notably
it's the one that always has track limits
because it's so advanced.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just with how many different discretions of motorsport race there. That track is used so frequently that
it's the test for Red Bull. Like that's where they do all their tests.
I was going to say it's kind of the leader for innovation for that reason, just because so many different discretions are racing there.
This can also highlight the Oscar Piastri kind of fiasco that happened this weekend, where he didn't quite hit the gravel trap and he didn't quite go over the blue line, or the white line to say, onto the blue line. But he was still given track limits and his time deleted, so he went from P3 to P7 in qualifying. And he was talking about it, and a lot of people were saying that he was just complaining and crying about it. But he kind of had a decent point of, why do we have gravel traps that are there for the sole reason to help guide what is a track limit, and he never hit the gravel, or at least he claims he never hit the gravel. I haven't watched the clip back, so he very much well could have had that back left tire just squeeze onto the gravel tiny bit, and that be the reason he got track limits.
Hey, a track limit is a track limit, and I don't think gravel traps are just specifically for enforcing track limits.
I don't think so either, because obviously it's to slow you down and get you off the racing line if you do cut over the racing line.
Yeah.
But then again, it doesn't feel like they were that helpful this weekend.
I guess that's fair. But I don't know. I feel like, especially at Austria, I think they're just so perfectly placed. And I know, I guess the track limits don't fully extend into the gravel, but I don't know. I think it works. That just might be my 2 cents on it. I personally think Oscar was whining just a tiny bit.
It did. He was. I'm not going to say that he wasn't, because at the end of the day, he was whining about it. But these guys are also so dialed and tuned in to be as perfect as they can. And when they don't think they made a mistake and, you know, everyone else does, obviously they're not going to take too well to it.
That's fair.
But that's any sport at any age. So
Yeah.
it's not like a shocking thing to see, but brother, this was a shocking thing to see about Danica Patrick, who the original video that we're talking about is now 3 or 4 weeks old, but I saw this in the media this week where she was making headlines with an hour and 14-minute video podcast titled "Everything You Need to Know About the Reptilian Shapeshifters and the Galactic Federation." Now, my caveat or continuance to this point is this who you really want to listen to on Drive to Survive?
And just in the sport
And in the
general.
sport? Like, I know...
It's giving a little bit of conspiracy theorist here.
Well, okay, she was dating Aaron Rodgers for a while, and a lot of people like to make fun of that because he's a weird dude, too. But, like, some of these interviews and just topics and thumbnails are weird, dude. They're just weird.
Well, I always just get the feeling that Danica Patrick is fighting to stay in the media.
Yes.
I don't know.
There's a lot of people that do that.
Like, I just don't think she is an interesting person whatsoever. So why are we kind of sitting here and letting this take headlines, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know, man. But just go look at the YouTube channel. Don't watch them unless you really, really want to learn how to spot a shapeshifter. But other than that, I don't think there's too much news that she's really covering or breaking, I should say.
Yeah.
V-carb seat has kind of come into the flames recently with...
As it always does.
Yeah, it always is. But Danny Rick is not safe. And we kind of knew that already. But
it's more the fact that Helmut Marko is kind of stating it out to the media now.
yeah, and you know, he was saying that Liam will soon sign for V-carb. According to him, the shareholders have made it known that this is a junior team and that they have to act accordingly.
Which I think is completely fair.
Which is very fair, but I think it's a very powerful statement that, you know, for other teams, you know, Williams per se, that they're going to be doing the same and getting younger drivers to kind of help chauffeur them into the sport and get them comfortable and maybe improve their driver stock a little bit for the next few years so they can sign with a better team or something.
Yeah.
But that kind of sounds like the precedent that this is setting.
Yeah, but it's Red Bull. I mean,
no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it should be a junior team. You shouldn't have.
Well, yeah. It should be a junior team. The junior team shouldn't exist in the first place. It should be its own standalone team. But
that's a whole different talking.
The way, but the way that they're doing it, and I'm very happy that Helmut Marko has said this, because it is a junior team, so you should not have somebody who's been in the sport for, you know, over 10 years at this point in one of those seats.
And that's the next thing that Helmut said was the aim for Daniel was to be considered for the main Red Bull seat, the second seat with Max. But that seat is Sergio's for the next 2 years at least, and this plan doesn't work anymore. But the last quote he said was, "We will soon have to put a young driver there at the Racing Bulls, and that would be Liam Lawson." So
finito, done.
I think that will probably come out as like an official thing either after Silverstone or maybe going over the summer break.
Yeah.
But until then, we are just theorizing.
I just think Daniel is he's wasting his own time. He's wasting the time of other drivers. He's not going anywhere anymore.
And I don't know if you saw the thing where they were like, "Oh, what do you think you're going to do after this if you can't get another seat?" And he's like, "I don't know if I'll drive anymore." Just straight up, like, I might just retire. And
he could, you know what? And
I mean,
I'd respect that.
He's got 2 businesses.
Yeah.
He's fine. He's going to be fine outside of the sport. And he's such a personality that I imagine F1 would eventually try to get him back into the sport.
As like a pundit or something.
Pundit,
he'd do great
or
as
just like an analysis for like 3 or 4 races out of the year.
Yeah.
Just something that he can go and talk and be back in the media.
Show
be
his
in the-
face. Yeah.
Show that smile to the fans that love him, you know? Do you want to take the
Yeah.
name?
I was going to say the other obviously young drivers that we want to see get a seat, and I still do. I'll take back my comment about being off the hype train. I still like the kid. Ollie Behrman, he seems to be hinting at an announcement very soon, as you know, it's been confirmed by Racing News 365 that Haas has signed Oliver Behrman. But it seems like these younger guys, you know, they're all getting seats. You know, does it mean teams like, you know, Alpine will sign Doohan, will attempt to get the second seat at one of those teams? You know, there's a lot that goes together with this kind of stuff, but I think it's obviously the right choice for Haas to take Ollie Behrman. I think always having a rookie in that team or just a young driver in that team has always been really nice. I don't think Haas should be a retirement home. You should kind of have one old head and one, you know, new hot shot in there. And I think Ollie Behrman's great for that seat.
I think to kind of go off that point, that you have like an experienced driver who feels comfortable sharing a team seat with a younger guy. Like, obviously that's not K-Mag or
We know that's
Nico,
not K-Mag.
but you would want someone who is a vet kind of teaching these guys how to, you know, really get used to the sport and get comfortable and what it's really, really like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really, really hard at the end of the day to kind of figure out how to get that team to work perfectly in that sense. But
That's a bridge you'll cross when you get there, though.
absolutely,
We'll have a good relationship.
going on to our next point, we have a small fire at Spain during the Spain for McLaren's hospitality, leaving Austria looking much different for the team. And
Yeah, that image was crazy.
yeah, it's like night and day difference. One of them was completely personalized. The other was like all stock stuff, if that makes sense. But it kind of checks out when you learn that the FIA, F1, and all the other teams offered help during the fire and to help replace some of the stuff that they have spares of, which, you know, Andreas Seidel even said himself, great sense of community and respects between the teams when it
I
comes
feel like
to
as it's always been.
Yeah.
As well, though,
and
for sure.
That's, I guess, another reason you can say you like love the sport so much is because
Yeah.
there is a mutual respect. It's much like hockey in that sense. I'm kind of coming to learn where a lot of these guys on the ice, you know, they're enemies. Just same thing for drivers on the track, but off the track, off the ice, you know, these guys can be friends. These guys can have connections, and it just goes way deeper than that.
Even with the stuff that we'll talk about later with Max and Lando today. You know, at the end of the day, they're still gonna hang out, play some golf together, all that kind of stuff.
paddle.
It's just the heat of the moment and the tension of the situation that they're in.
It's hard. It's a hard one, but going on to the major extensions that we got this week.
Couple of them this week.
We have Lance Stroll, the Nepo baby, coming in first, has extended with AMR for a multi-year extension, which his dad owns the team, people. He could be there for 30 more years if his dad owns the team. It's just a stupid situation.
Lance Stroll might actually take the record of having the longest F1 career of all time at some point. Who knows?
No. Unless he bankrupts the team, which, you know, he crashes a lot. That's like the only reason I think they could.
He'd have to crash a lot to bankrupt Daddy Stroll's pockets.
True. But the other option is he kills someone.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Pierre Gasly, which I love what you said to me about this.
Yeah.
Quote, won the French Civil War within Alpine for the seat.
I think it was a fair point to put it like that. And I'm very happy that Pierre Gasly won the French Civil War with Alpine because he's the better driver.
Yeah, and even the team's Twitter came under fire for dissing Ocon after Gasly got out in SQ3. Their original tweet,
I didn't see that.
The original tweet or something like that was like, quote, it was like, "Arg, Gasly's out and Ocon advances to SQ3." And then everyone was
Okay, so
like,
that's just people interpreting that incorrectly.
no, it was like worded purposely to be like favoriting one of the other drivers. And
Okay.
then they changed it to be like, oh no, Gasly out, but our Ocon gets through or something like way more neutral. And I don't know, man. I think it's stupid. he signs a deal through the 2026 season, which very good. This guy deserves it at the heart of it. He's the better driver at the team, like you said, and he's a better driver overall. I would
Completely
say.
agree. He also doesn't come to squabbles with his teammates every other race.
Or anyone on the track every other race.
Yeah, I agree.
Williams haven't signed a second driver yet, but that's okay. Have reportedly recruited 26 new engineers from other teams in the sport, hopefully making next year's car much more better and one to compete with.
Yeah, I'm hoping that with the new Mercedes engine in 2026 and all these new engineers, that's the year where they really come out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think that's what they should do. I mean, they've already started.
I think that's what James Vowles is going for.
Yeah, you've already started developing next year's car. So it doesn't make sense to put all of your eggs in that basket, especially when the regulations change. It makes more sense for them to really put their eggs in that basket and come out swinging almost. So I don't know. It's weird. The last thing I guess we can talk about is all the Red Bull drama.
Not this again. Like I thought we were so far past this.
Hey, man, it's never going to end,
Yeah, I know.
but it's okay.
So, guys, as you know, there's more drama between the Verstappen family and Red Bull, and it's all rooted in Jos Verstappen again.
Yeah, and Christian Horner.
But yeah, Jos Verstappen, he was supposed to drive for the Legends Parade at the Austrian circuit ahead of the race with other racing legends like Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Emerson Fittipaldi, Johnny Herbert, a ton of F1 world champions, multiple race-winning drivers, great personalities. But of course, Jos is claiming that he heard from several sources that Horner was doing everything he could to prevent him from driving in that parade. No idea why these guys hate each other so much. Like, we have our reasons, but it just seems like they do it for fun. But it got so bad that Max was asked about it, and he said, I think my dad has been quite clear about the reason behind it, and of course, I can understand his opinion on that, because at the end of the day, once he gets asked to drive the car, finds out that he's not wanted to drive the car, my dad is he doesn't care about driving the car, but he got asked, please do it for the fans, Dutch fans, blah, 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 blah. Red Bull, we have a great relationship with. It's the home track. So
I love how you can tell it's Mac's quote just from the way he talks.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Please do it for the fans, Dutch fans, blah, 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 Red Bull.
Yeah, I understand. But he further said, on the other hand, I'm here, of course, to focus on the performance side of things, so I want a good relationship with everyone. I don't know how good his relationship is with his dad right now. But lastly, he said, but of course, this scenario could have been avoided. And of course, it could be avoided.
Yeah, it should have been avoided.
If Jos Verstappen wasn't in the paddock. I'll let that go. But this concluded with the fact that Jos said that he is finished with the Red Bull team principal and compared this situation and team to a kindergarten class. I think Jos just likes to moan and complain all the time.
Yeah, he did it when he was a driver. He did it as a father. He did it obviously now when his son's driving.
Yeah. I think he just likes drama.
Yeah, I think he does kind of like the drama too.
I enjoy watching the drama.
I mean, I understand. They don't get along at all. And they haven't gotten along for most of Max's life, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. But Christian Horner, we're going to stick with him for a second, was facing questions in the media about Max to Mercedes rumors. And he was quoted saying that the driver who created all the movement in the market had all the information about the engines and 2026 regulations and chose to leave Mercedes. So obviously he's talking about Lewis.
Yeah.
Now, Max did kind of clap back at Total Wolff saying, well, if you do want a Verstappen, my dad's available to drive.
Dude, I feel like Jos would hop in that seat for sure.
Amen. LeBron and Bronny, Jos and Max.
Okay.
It's over. It's the year of the father-son duo, I guess. But
can we get Carlos Sainz Sr.?
Oh, that would be the best.
I would love that.
That would be awesome.
I thought you'd like that one.
That would be so cool. Get him in Red Bull too.
Mm-hmm. Just create a whole new team. Another thing, though, I was talking about this with a couple of my buddies, and yesterday. Yuki was fined 40,000 euros
This was wild.
for what he said about another driver over team radio. I believe he used the R slur.
He did.
But yeah, he made a message to the public saying how he was extremely sorry and didn't fully know what the meaning behind the slur was. And you know what I'm getting references to? The Yuri Vips situation 2 years ago when he said the N-word on a Call of Duty Warzone stream with Liam Lawson. And this guy, arguably, in my opinion, Yuri Vips was a better driver than Liam Lawson, and he had more potential to go into F1 and do well. He was obviously a Red Bull junior, and he lost all of that. But he was Estonian. He had, like his culture, he really didn't know
It's hard.
the root meaning of that word.
Yeah, it gets difficult, especially when you start, because these guys, a lot of their main languages aren't English. And yes, there is probably a word for it, and they know that word in their language. But when you're learning a different culture, especially like Yuki's situation where he came to he came to England. I forget what part, but
yeah, but he's
they
from Japan.
Yeah, but they swear a lot in the part that he grew up in England.
Yeah.
So he just kind of
Probably Birmingham. I'm just kidding.
Anyways, you're just trying to throw off one of our friends.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. I don't know. He just picked up this dialect almost, and he doesn't fully understand it.
Yeah.
That does create the issue where, something like this happens where he says something on TV, which is where this really comes down to it.
Yeah, that's why it's an issue.
If it wasn't broadcasted on the radio over TV, would he have probably gotten fined? Yes. I don't think it would have been 40,000 though.
That's fair.
I think because, dude, look how many other drivers were calling each other idiots, swearing at each other over the radio.
Max has literally used the R slur in recent times. Portimao 2020, he used it about Lance Stroll.
And that's the thing too, is I understand that this word is offensive and, is a slur at the end of the day now in today's standards. But 15 years ago, it was such a common phrase among the world. It hadn't fully reached that point of being okay, this is a, objectively hurtful word
That we should not be using.
Yeah, and most people have gotten it out of their vocabulary. Now, I can't just crucify Yugi for doing it. This is a mistake.
Yeah, I understand both sides.
Obviously he apologized. He's going to pay the fine.
At least he doesn't lose his drive like Yuri Vips did.
Yes, that is true. But also, it's Yuki, man. Everyone loves Yuki.
I don't care. Yuri Vips was so good. I didn't think I was going to be talking about Yuri Vips today. That guy's one of my favorite young juniors of all time.
All right. I'll let you take practice and sprint.
You thought we're doing the F2 race recap first. We're just going to bang this out really quick.
Got him.
F2 obviously follows this entire triple header, so we'll be racing at Great Britain next week as well. But in qualifying, Dennis Hauger was our first multiple-time pole sitter of this season after topping the timing sheets earlier this year in Australia. Once again, surprisingly, it was a nail-bitingly close affair in qualifying with Hauger's pole time of a 1:15.487, just 8 thousandths of a second faster than P2's Joshua Dirksen for AIX Racing. P10 and P9, which is the front row for the sprint race, were taken by Kush Miney and Oliver Behrman, respectively. And the entire grid was only separated by 1 second, not even 1 second. So, again, super close. These cars are very close together. Now, part of this is attributed to it being the shortest track on the calendar, but still, under a second's wild. In the sprint race, it was a perfect launch off the line for Behrman. He shot past Miney really quickly, with the latter eventually also dropping to P3 after a great run from Pepe Marti off the first corner. It was a pretty comfortable lights to flag victory for Behrman after he had that overtake off the line. He never really looked back. But the real fight was for the last spot on the podium. Miney's tires really began to fall off in the final third of the race, with championship leader Paul Aaron seizing the final spot on the podium and Gabriele Bortoleto also sneaking past in the same sequence of corners into P4 as well. Aaron and Bortoleto then, for the last few laps, were fighting over the final podium spot, with Aaron just holding on to take his 7th podium of the season, leaving Behrman P1 for the first time this season, his first time stepping on a podium this season. Pepe Marti P2, his first podium since the opening round, and Aaron P3 extending his championship lead to 16 points over Isaac Hadjar. In the feature race, it was a little bit more wild and exciting. Pole sitter Dennis Hauger was obviously looking up to make for his Australian pole disappointment when he had his massive crash, but sadly he would stall the car on the formation lap, demoting him to the pit lane. Now he did not do this alone. Cush Miney and Jack Crawford also stalled and all started from the pit lane, but this meant Joshua Dirksen would lead Gabriel Bortoleto into turn one. Dirksen, however, would soon fall like a stone, with the leading group all leaving him behind after the first few laps. Zane Maloney had a bit of a random retirement about halfway through the race, so a VSC came out for that, and a number of runners boxed early. And, I hinted at it happening earlier. Kimi Antonelli decided to stall in the pit lane to further boost his F1 stock, and, he essentially fell to the back of the grid because of that. But what was truly exciting about this race was its conclusion, just like the F1 race, like we'll talk about later. But it wasn't really that crazy for the win. Bortoleto was convincingly out in front, and that wasn't going to change. But it was the alternate strategy taken by Franco Colapinto that saw him fight his way all the way up to P2 by the flag on fresher rubber than those around him. Campos teammates Marty and Hajar really duked it out in the final few laps for that last spot on the podium, with P2 in the championship, Isaac Hajar coming out on top. But it was still back-to-back podiums. It was still back-to-back great results for Pepe Marti. But you had Bortoleto in P1 for his first win in Formula 2, Franco Colapinto in P2 to shoot himself up to 5th in the championship, and Hajar P3. Paul Aaron took P5, losing time due to a penalty for aggressive defensive driving, with his lead in the championship cut to just 11 points. What I thought was so impressive about this, and I've said it before, was that halfway through the season, we are exactly halfway through the season now, Paul Aaron has yet to win a race, but he is leading the championship. He's finished in the points in every single one of the first 14 races that we've had, except the Australian sprint race. And 7 of those 13 points finishes have been on the podium. Like the fact that this guy is not being considered for an F1 seat right now is incredible to me. But yeah, that's my quick fire F2 recap for the weekend. Pretty good weekend of racing in Austria for Formula 2.
Hell yeah. We'll go over to the, what's it? The TT Circuit Assen? I don't know. That's the track they did at MotoGP.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the Netherlands?
Yeah, it is. It is the Netherlands.
It was the Netherlands. Like, I remember things. I'm smart, but didn't get to watch any of it, sadly, because it started at 7 a.m. for us American folks. And
for you American folks, it's on HBO Max. If you have HBO Max.
So is Le Mans,
Oh, yeah, Le Mans was on HBO Max as well.
WEC, all of WEC and MotoGP is on HBO Max if you have it. So that's a huge plus.
I was going to say, I'm a Netflix hater, and been bouncing between Hulu and HBO Max recently, but now with all my racing that I get there, HBO Max, get that if you're a racing fan.
Yes, it's so worth it. You get so much bang for your buck, too.
Yeah.
So many good movies. But it was a full Ducati top 5 for this race. We had Bagnaia, Jorge Martin, Bastianini, Marc Marquez, and Di Gianantonio.
Mouthful.
A lot of names, brother. Martin was 3.5 seconds behind pole. Then everyone else was over 7 seconds behind him. Which, close race at the end of the day. It didn't seem too exciting. I didn't see any huge highlights of anything to really break out. But this means now for the championship standings for MotoGP, we have Jorge Martin leading the Champion Series with 80 points, Bastianini in second with 59, Apparelli driver Vinales in third with 56, KTM driver Acosta in fourth with 54, and Bagnaia in fifth with 50 points. So we'll have some more MotoGP, I believe, next week even. Yes, next week, 7 a.m. again. Love it.
Beautiful.
But it's at the Sachsenring.
Got you.
In
I
Germany.
See.
Germany. So that will be a fun one. But let's throw it back over to the F1 race to finish off today.
Nothing majorly crazy in practice. There was really nothing to talk about. It was really just everybody learning the track limits, getting comfortable with the track, that kind of stuff.
So FP1, we had Oliver Behrman, Kimi Antonelli. They drove for FP1. I know that. Mm-hmm. And what else was the important thing that happened in practice? Oh yes, VCarb reverted one of their cars to last week's pre-upgraded car.
Oh yes, just to
to
see which one
see.
would do better.
And that's where we saw, I don't know which driver got the revised car, I should say, but like
Yeah.
they were still somewhat close in competition. So SQ3, I think they were like a thousandth of a second apart.
Mm-hmm.
So
But yeah, when it came to sprint qualifying, again, nothing super major. Max Verstappen took pole position in sprint qualifying with the McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri following close behind. I think the very big thing to take away from this weekend, especially in qualifying, with McLaren having the best car, is just how good of a driver Max Verstappen is. I think these past few races have really set in stone just how good of a driver Max is, now that we know he does not have the best car. But the one big thing with sprint qualifying was in SQ3, Leclerc's engine just gave up and he had anti-stall in the pit lane when going out for his first run in SQ3. So he had to retire in the pit lane and started P10 for the race. It has not been a good run of weekends for Charles. I feel really bad for him. But the sprint race was, again, nothing really to write home about. It was a Max P1, Lando P2, as we expected. I really didn't watch the sprint, I'll be completely honest. Now, I did watch qualifying in the race, though. But for qualifying, the gap in Q1 of 0.798 seconds between the first and last car is the closest gap the top 20 cars have ever had in World Championship history since we introduced the Q1, Q2, Q3 format. This is really good for those that really want that close racing, and we're obviously seeing it in the races now. Did that hold into Q2 and Q3? No, but Ferraris were really continuing to not look good at all. I personally think they're down to the fourth best car at the moment. I think the Mercedes is better than the Ferrari right now.
yes,
But like I said, with the whole, near 0.8 of a second gap between the whole field, Verstappen still found a way to take pole position by 0.4 of a second over Lando in P2 and George in P3. Oscar was going to be up there until he had his moment with the gravel like we talked about and dropped him down to P7. Obviously, he didn't finish the race anywhere near that in a good way. But yeah, Raven and I both got up super early this morning to watch the race before we got here. It was a very clean start until Leclerc got wing damage in the opening lap by contact with Oscar Piastri. He had to box, and that essentially ruined his race. But he still finished 11th, which was crazy given all that happened and the fact that he boxed 4 times during that race. Like that blew
was
my
shocking.
mind.
And I genuinely think that there was an argument that he deserved driver of the day just because of that.
I think he deserved driver of the day, but you know who's going to get it? It's probably George.
It
If
was
I check,
Lando.
it's
I'm pretty sure it was
There's
Lando.
no way Lando got driver of the day again.
I think so. I can double check here in a second.
I'm sorry. F1 fangirls are ruining the actual base of people who like Lando Norris. It's making them look so bad. What? What's your issue with that?
Nothing. I think it's funny.
It's a fact.
It's a
Fact.
Sources?
George Russell.
Valid.
Got to watch that 2019 drivers intro video that they made with Alex, George, and Lando a few years back. All right, Raven. But yeah,
We can finally do the George Russell pose.
the Alpines also nearly killed each other trying to get past the struggling Fernando Alonso.
This
Dude, I
one-
feel so bad for Fernando.
This one was weird because it's like Alonso's defending against Ocon, and then Gasly's just like phew, right out the outside, comes around both of them.
I think Gasly also raced his teammate really well
did.
again this weekend. Yeah,
It seemed like Ocon tried to run him off the road after this clean overtake.
that's what I felt.
And, there could be some tension there. Obviously, Ocon doesn't have the seat anymore. Gasly just got extended. It becomes this situation of, is there beef? Is there not beef? We can only speculate. But based off just the skilled wheel-to-wheel driving, like you were saying earlier, Max did terrible. But a lot of the guys that we kind of bash for their wheel-to-wheel driving most weeks, Lance Stroll, Ocon, Gasly, you can even say like all the Haas, Danny Rick, Yuki, all of them drove really well. And it was a very, very fun race.
But yeah, it ended up turning into penalties galore for drivers like Albon, Alonso, Norris, and Max. Like it, obviously, Austria is, you're going to see the most penalties at Austria of any other track on the calendar. But with these penalties, I really do want to sit here for a couple minutes and dive into Max and Lando's penalties, because I think we really need to talk about this incident that absolutely turned the race on its head. Because Max jumped away at the beginning of the race and was building a sizable gap to Lando that got up to, I believe.
This was something that confused me because he did get like a 7-second lead, but Norris was continuously setting faster laps.
No, it wasn't continuously.
It was like back
the
and forth?
beginning of at the very beginning of the race. Lando was faster, and then Max was kind of managing better. But we get to like lap 60, and they're
It was like 68, I thought.
yeah, but they've finally made their second stop.
Oh yeah.
And Max has a slow stop, and it allows Lando to close that entire gap in the pit lane. So Lando comes out. He's like a second and a half behind Max now, and he's faster. So Lando starts catching up to Max. He is within DRS. I really thought back markers were going to screw Lando's chance to overtake him by giving Max DRS on a bunch of straights, given half the track is a DRS straight. But once we got into that clean air where it was just Max against Lando, Max started off having some very decent defenses on Lando's advances. Lando got a bit overzealous a couple times, diving down the inside of Max, shooting off the road, and Max kind of just goes back up. Both of them are getting pissy at each other. Max is saying that Lando's trying to kill him. Lando's saying that Max is running him off the road, and XYZ. I don't know how you run somebody off the road when you're dive bombing them. But it finally boils over to, on lap 64, Lando decides to finally go for the outside line to overtake Max. And as good as Max had been driving, and all the praise he'd been getting, and all of the moaning that he's saying about how bad Lando's driving, Max has like a moment that just reminds me of pre-world champion Max, where Lando is fully up the outside, and Max decides to run Lando off the road, and both Max's rear left tire and Lando's rear right tire collide because of how far off the track Max is forcing Lando, and they both get punctures, and they both drop out of the race, and George Russell wins the race. I mean, Max didn't DNF. He actually made it back to the pits and was able to change tires and finish in 5th place, but it ended Lando's race immediately, and
Now,
George Russell.
I want to pose the question to you: was this a big brain play? Because
I was actually talking to my buddies Ethan and Hamza about this.
Max finished with more points than
Max
Lando.
still found a way to extend his championship lead. That we were talking about this.
Which I don't know. This guy makes the best situation out of every worst situation that he's given, and you can see it with his dad and his team principal. He's like, yeah, this could have been avoided, but I'm backing both of them because I have ties with both of them.
The fact that his championship lead grew after that.
Grew from this.
Because if you say that Max was not at fault for that collision, I can't talk to you. And I love Lando, I love Max, I love all the drivers on the grid except Lance Stroll. But as a pure just racing neutral fan, since Charles Leclerc was not involved in this incident, this is 100% Max's fault. Anybody with two eyes can see that.
Yeah.
He forced Lando off the track, and Lando, in trying to stay on the track, they both got punctures. So yeah, this was just, it seems like a very childish, inexperienced moment for Max, which you don't see anymore. And maybe it's because he's gone so long without having to race wheel to wheel. So when he's doing it so consistently, he is more susceptible to mistakes.
A little rusty.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with Lewis Hamilton. Like I felt, in 2021 when Max and Lewis were battling so hard, Max was the one who had supreme consistency, and Lewis was way more susceptible to mistakes because he hasn't been fighting other drivers for so long. So maybe there are a little bit of cracks in Max Verstappen. He is not perfect. And I think that this weekend proved that. Yes, he's able to make, the second, third best car, the best car on the grid because of himself, but he's not susceptible to a mistake when somebody else is faster than him.
Yeah. And I mean, George obviously just driving his heart out.
It's the fact that before that incident, George was like 15 seconds behind the two of them.
He wasn't close. Like, he didn't really have a shot unless something happened. And, there was a safety car, there was a VSC, which really slowed down the field a little bit, got everyone back together, and that's why we kind of got a lot of those last minute overtakes. You get Max going back to P5,
Piastri taking signs for P2.
And then you got double Haas points. You got Daniel Rick scoring points.
Yeah, Haas taking 12 points this weekend was crazy.
Haas might be in a spot where they can really become that last year's.
I really hope they can challenge VCarb because before this race they were 23 points behind VCarb. Now they're 11. I mean, they cut that deficit over half in one race,
which is really, really impressive. No top 5 or not 5, just because we didn't get to watch as much as the races we would like to. I have to take a train to get here now, and the train's Wi-Fi kind of cuts in and out. But
yeah,
it's okay.
It happens.
So that's going to be it for us this week. But I do want to just kind of talk to the listeners for a second. One, thank you for the growth on YouTube. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. The others are, I'm building my PC. My personal PC is going to be, Oliver and I are going to build it. Yes, finally. But that's the thing is I might make this like a bonus video and we'll put it out as like a little vlog. You'll see Oliver and I and maybe a few other buddies kind of just shooting it, hanging out. Just less professional, less, sit down in the mic.
A vlog. That can be fun.
Yeah, it would just be a fun little, like, I don't know, 15, 20-minute vlog that I'll make, throw it up on the YouTube for people to see, because then eventually the idea is to start making content live at sometimes. Maybe it's a race watch party here and there. Maybe it's us playing video games outside of work hours. So
yeah,
there's a lot more coming. We also have a new show. We have the Hawks Hours guys coming in today. They're going to be recording one episode as a draft recap for the NHL, so that should be coming out sometime today or tomorrow. Otherwise, they're going to be then going on break for 3 months. Same thing with Good Morning Hockey. We have 2 more shows this week, Monday and Tuesday, and then we will be taking 9 weeks off until September. Fortunately enough, Oliver and I will
we will continue.
We will continue until summer break. I think we said that we will take...
There's 3 weekends with no race.
We're going to take
2 of those off.
We're going to take the first 2 weekends off.
Yeah.
Just so we can have, 2 weeks back to back instead of splitting it down the middle, because that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that, and then we'll come back for no
silly season recap kind of thing.
Like little mid-season recap, what kind of happened on the off-season, stuff like that. Then we'll come back to the second half of the race season. And hopefully, I'm going to say this now as like a way to pressure Oliver and I to do it. But hopefully we're trying to get 2 guests in the month of July. And so the idea for that is going to be for the audio listeners, we will just attach it into the video essentially, or the same file, so you guys won't have to go check anything there. For YouTube, we would honestly probably keep the pod
as its own standalone,
and then we would just upload the video as a bonus video, because let's be real, I would rather have people just click on watch that video than
because if you just want to watch an interview,
scrub through the interview on our pod. I think that makes more sense. I think it's going to be a lot more fun. So that's happening. We are also finally getting mic stands for the studio. We are also getting pops filters for the studio. We got some decorations up now.
Look at the new couch.
The new couch we got.
Oh yeah.
Shout out Tassos for that. He's a G. But yeah, I just want to say thank you guys. We enjoy coming out here. It's fun. It's
That it is.
it's a good little way
Honestly,
to rant
break.
for an hour. Yeah, and it's just relaxing to kind of talking. So we appreciate all of y'all. We will continue making videos. We will continue making audio, and we'll make it better. I promise.
Yes, sir.
More editing. We're gonna start making shorts too. Better thumbnails. The whole 9 yards. We're gonna be doing it for y'all. So that will be it for this week. Please subscribe to the YouTube. Rate 5. Like it on YouTube. Rate 5 stars wherever you find your podcasts. Oliver, you know the drill. Take us out,
Raven
my
soap
friend.
story's over. Okay. I'm just kidding.
Jesus.
I'm kidding.
You know what you are? You know what you are?
Decided to be a terrorist.
Okay, not a terrorist.
We haven't thrown that one out in a while, but finish
Wow.
the video.
You know what? No, Max is. You know what screw
Max.
this guy. Subscribe this side of my head. This is how it's always done. Last week's video on this side of my head. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to repeat what Raven said. Rate 5 stars. Keep listening. We're going to keep improving for you guys. I appreciate you all tuning out and listening every single week. Thank you so much.
Bye.